Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. Dr. Joe Salusto here with you again at Ellucian Live 2022, recording as people walk by my booth. I have two people here that Elvin literally tackled in the hallway. He chased them down and tackled them. He tackled Matt, who I'll introduce in a second, and Gabrielle came along for the ride. I said, Elvin, don't tackle Gabrielle. That's not good. That's not good karma for either of us here. But we're excited to talk with them because they are what I would say fellow influencers in higher education, thought leadership, what's going on in the industry. I got to introduce them properly. I have, as everybody knows, I have in-episode sound effects as I describe to people. Then they put on the microphone and the headphones, and then I actually hit one of these buttons. They go, oh, wow, I didn't know it was really like that. But here they are, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Matt, Alex, and Gabrielle. Boy, I don't know how to say Christoph-itch. No? How do
Perfect.
Is that right?
Christoph-itch
from Beyond Academics. See, I knew we were going to be in for a train wreck on this one. How you doing, guys?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Hold on tight. This is going to be a bumpy ride.
Only because of me. Only because of me. Matt.
We're ready. We're ready already.
We're glad
We're
you're
holding
here.
on.
Hold on. I feel like that this is long overdue to have you on EdUp Experience because we've been intersecting in multiple ways and multiple platforms for a long time.
Yeah.
How are things going?
Things are good. You know, we're I think we all met on Clubhouse, including Gabrielle and I and Joe. And I think it's coming to a place of intersection now. I think higher ed is at a transformational stage. I think what you're doing with EdUp, what we're doing with our ThinkSpaces is really redefining how we really message to market, what's the thought leadership of market. And so I'm excited about that. I really believe, you guys are the voices of higher ed. And I think that is a really important part of moving higher ed forward, is to bring the voices of higher ed who really understand it and can drive the direction and be able to paint the picture. Because I believe we've been on a map that has been painted years ago. We have to actually paint the new picture. And that's where I think having the voices really step up is really important. So
I think the ThinkSpace is super cool. But there are people out there that might not know what a ThinkSpace is. So we're talking about it. I know exactly what you're saying. But somebody who's listening to this podcast right now is going to go, what the heck is a ThinkSpace? And Gabrielle, you got to describe it in layman's terms for our audience as best that you can here. What is a ThinkSpace?
Okay, I'll do it. I'll do my best here. A ThinkSpace is really a collaborative space where people come together and discuss their ideas regarding topics in higher ed. So all of our ThinkSpaces are driven by a topic or a theme, something that either stirs some controversy or something that people have I know, woo, scary. Something that people have a lot of differing ideas about.
Controversy in higher ed, yikes.
Yes, I know. Matt, Alex definitely tackles those head on. But, we're not really there to preach anything. It's really a space where we come up with, different questions and guiding topics to really facilitate that conversation. So we're not really the ones like saying this is what needs to happen or this is what is happening. We allow the ThinkSpace participants to really come up with their ideas. And we use a platform called XLeap that really allows people to engage in a way that doesn't have to be just through audio. They can actually type in their responses and we can get real-time data for hundreds of participants at once, which is very cool.
So would you describe it like a town hall? Is that a good way to think about it?
I think it's so different than we've ever seen before. Everything is a one-way conversation. I think it's close to a town hall.
Yeah.
But I think that everyone is on stage. That's probably the big difference. In a lot of traditional webinars, a lot of traditional town halls, there's a panel and there's a question, and then you may get 2 or 3 minutes of someone's thought from the audience into a question. Whereas in our ThinkSpace, it starts right from the start. We're really crowdsourcing the ideas and thoughts, opinions, and like Gabrielle said, we ask questions. So the way that we design ThinkSpaces is that we of course look at topics that are really important to higher ed in terms of what is it that they need to do.
Yep.
And then what we do in ThinkSpace, we work backwards. We're like, okay, what is the outcome of that ThinkSpace? What do we want people to leave us with? And that sets up the questions. Because what we don't want is we don't want to preach it.
Right.
We want people to recognize the outcomes that we really all believe that we have to get to. And the reality of it is higher ed knows where they have to get to, but there's only a few set of people that are actually speaking the direction. So sometimes it's skewed in one way. But in ThinkSpace, right from the start, everyone has an opinion. I use that hashtag Your Voice Matters.
Yep.
I can't tell you the number of people that will walk out of that saying, I actually felt heard. And I think the crowdsourcing element of it is probably the differentiator for us. In our ThinkSpace, we have something called vote ups and bubble ups. And basically when someone has an opinion, that's great. It actually becomes really powerful when your peers bubble you up. All of a sudden, it isn't the one loudest voice saying it. It is everyone in collective. And there's a lot of audience members who do not want to get up and speak,
Right.
but they have an opinion. And so we let that happen. And because of that, we now have 600 people that join our ThinkSpaces.
So you could have somebody that has the same opinion or idea of you, but you don't want to get it. You don't want to talk. So you bubble them up so that you can be heard, even though you're in the background.
Yes.
That's interesting, right?
People can vote. So they can vote using their vote ups. So we can get an idea for the pattern that's happening among the differences.
And we use our ThinkSpace in our consulting model, right? From my old traditional model, I would have sat in front of an audience and had an opinion, the loudest voice. The director of some office would say, oh, this is what we do. This is the issues we have. And everyone under them won't ever say anything. In our ThinkSpace, when we do it in our consulting world, it is amazing the consensus that comes. And so maybe that one director's opinion is there and it may be valid. In some cases, it may not be valid. All of a sudden, the group in that setting is working on the most important topic of that session. And when we have consensus, you don't have resistance to change. And that's what we're really driving toward. If I can get all of higher ed to actually drive in the same direction and we have consensus, that is what I'm really looking for in the ThinkSpace elements of what we're doing.
Is it possible to get higher ed all to move in the same direction, Matthew, Alex? I would like to know your answer. It is a very, very important question.
I believe that at the top schools and the Ivies and the big states, they can do what they do. You're going to need consensus at the mid-market in the community colleges because those transformations are so vitally needed. And in some cases, it is there's folks in the crosshairs that in order to make that transformation, you actually need everyone within your campus to recognize why this transformation is happening. And when they buy into it, then the real story of the journey is really laid out.
Gabrielle, what is it like working for Matt? Sorry, you can't say that stuff on my podcast, Gabrielle. Go ahead. Okay, now go ahead.
I get that question a lot.
Did you get it all out now? Okay. All right, go ahead.
Well, working with Matt is always a new adventure every day.
You cleaned up that language quick, Gabrielle. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. No, it's always an adventure. We're always working on something new, something fun, and something out there. It's really cool to be able to pave like a new path in higher ed. I really believe in the vision of, beyond academics and, Matt, Alex, and all the awesome folks that work with us on our team as well. And I just love the innovative dynamic that we have. I think it's really cool. Really
How did
fun.
you guys come together on the ThinkSpace together, Gabrielle? Did Matt come to you and say, look, I'm just not that good by myself. And so I need somebody that has way better energy than I do. And then he found you. How did you guys team up for the ThinkSpace? Or did you volunteer? Did you say, I want the microphone? How did it work?
Well, it's interesting because I met Matt Alex through LinkedIn and we started talking because he was from Chicago. And I thought that was really cool because I worked on Blackhawk for a while. And and I really wanted him to join this new app that I discovered called Clubhouse because I had joined a few of Matt Alex's Zoom-ins, which he had going on before.
As have I.
Yes, the Zoom-ins are amazing. And when I discovered Clubhouse, I was like, oh, Matt Alex would really like this. And he was resistant at first. He tells a story way better than I do. But his version is I forced him to get on.
Wrong.
And then I ditched him for about 6 weeks. And during that time, when I went black,
Right.
he had amounted to 2,000 plus followers, had created a virtual conference space, 24 hours with like 36 hours of 24-hour around the clock conference. It was like Educate or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of the beginning of the ThinkSpace concept, wasn't it, for you? Like it kind of evolved. It wasn't just out of the blue. The concept evolved through the experiences. I'm not sure if Matt wants to.
Because I know about Clubhouse. I did it for a little bit. Matt kept going, hey, you got to get in Clubhouse. I'm like, I try. And then it would suck your time away from you. And then it had a tendency to go negative. And we, in higher education, we want to have very positive conversations about change. And it's tough to control. And, you know, you get trolls and that kind of thing. So it evolved for you, didn't it, Matt?
Yeah, and I think ThinkSpace allows for the negativity to be said, but not bubbled up.
Right.
Right. So the bubble ups are very positive. Hey, what is it that we have to do? And so I think that is something that's really important to recognize in our ThinkSpace. You know, people who really believe in higher ed are the ones that are coming into my ThinkSpaces. They recognize, hey, we should have this conversation. And that's why I believe, and I know we're in good hands with the people that do come, because they recognize they are who will lead higher ed in the future. And just to go back on Gabrielle in terms of ThinkSpace, you know, the concept of ThinkSpace has been out there. We've been doing it. But at Clubhouse, Gabrielle and I used to just riff on topics that we had to cover in Clubhouse. So we would have like 50 topics that we thought we should be speaking to around higher ed in Clubhouse. So when we started to say, hey, let's take what we do in our consulting, bring it into this thing called ThinkSpace, and then we branded it accordingly. Then we started to bring others in. Joe Abraham, who's a partner, you know, he drives a lot of the discussions around entrepreneurship. And we have all these ambassadors that come in. And so I think a lot of it is topics are bubbled up. And sometimes maybe I write an article and that bubbles up into a conversation, right? Or Brian Alexander has a topic and I want to then have that dialogue. Or if you guys are having a topic around EdUp and say, let's bring that to Clubhouse, to ThinkSpace. So I think it's a mesh of Clubhouse, our consulting, but then it builds, I think right now ThinkSpace has its own like brand and recognition. If I say ThinkSpace, everyone understands it. Yeah. And so I'm excited about that.
Can you Gabrielle, can you bubble things down, or is it more like an honor system where you just go, you believe in the quality of people and the best topics bubble up? It's it's like an attrition process of positivity.
Yeah, I would say our ThinkSpaces are really positive. Like I mentioned earlier, sometimes there are some topics where people have differing viewpoints that I always feel like the ThinkSpace allows for like a positive, proactive discussion where different opinions are able to be heard and understood, and people kind of go back and forth on it. So I do feel like overall we don't control the system. We don't control who's allowed to vote or anything like that. Everyone just gets into the system. They actually are anonymous, so we see different ideas that do bubble up, and we even might call on it and say, hey, number 3, they said this about that. Does anyone have anything that they want to add to that or say to that? Or if someone that wrote that, could you elaborate more on that? So I always feel like we always first seek to understand instead of just assuming.
I have like a Yoda Star Wars button, seek to understand. I just didn't download it but yes.
I'm not sure if that makes sense, but I feel like that's what we do. We really try to get to the core of that. And then through that process, we actually come up with other ideas for ThinkSpaces. We might say, hey, you know what? This is a topic all on its own. We need to do an entirely different ThinkSpace for this.
Interesting.
And our ThinkSpace are 90 minutes. And the ones that we do in person are 2.5 hours. And when we first say to people it's a 90-minute session or it's 2.5 hours, you can see that people are like, oh my God, I got to be
training for that long, talking for that.
And so now when people go through a 90-minute ThinkSpace, the comments we get is we don't have enough time. Can we make this longer? Or the 2.5 session when we're in person, people always say, we need more time. And it's interesting when people feel like
that's great engagement.
They're part of it. It's a big thing. So the engagement is 3 types, right? 1, you can jump on the stage at any point in time, just like Clubhouse. You can get up on stage and have a conversation just like we're having now. you could actually be in the chat. And the reality of it is the chat is on fire.
I bet.
Because there is so many people who wants to articulate it in writing. It is amazing how we can see it. And we have something called the voice of the chat, and they'll come in and say, hey, in the chat, this is happening. And then, of course, our XLEAD platform, our ThinkSpaces platform has their own opinion. So these three dynamics come into play, and there's something for everybody through that process.
Do you guys like doing them? ThinkSpaces, right? What do you get out of it? What do you get out of it, Gabrielle? What are your takeaways after these? Is it motivational to you? Is it giving you new ideas? Is it changing the way you think? Talk about because when you host something, I'm asking it from a host perspective. Every single time I do, it's like it's changing me in some way. The people I talk to, the insights I get. What do you get out of it?
Well, I really love understanding what people are thinking and really understanding kind of what's happening in the market. So I don't think there's a better way to really understand what's happening than by actually talking to the people that are in it, actually doing it on the ground, really immersed in that environment. I feel like I really enjoy having my thoughts and ideas challenged. And I feel like ThinkSpace is really a place to do that. It's a place to grow. It's a place to collaborate and elaborate on thoughts and ideas. So for me, it's kind of just like a nerdy, geeky, like just excitement thrill, because I just love learning about new topics and different ideas. And I also love the people that we meet. I feel like, especially now, like a lot of the people that are like coming into our circle and our friends groups and the people that we're meeting at conferences and things like that, they've all come from our ThinkSpaces. And I was just at a conference in Atlanta in February, and I saw a couple of folks. I was like, hey, you've been in our ThinkSpaces.
Amazing.
Nice to meet you in person. I know, it is amazing. It's really a community of forward-thinking, like-minded people that are really invested in the future of higher ed. So it feels really purpose-driven to me.
Yeah, and for me, I think, when I left my previous firm, I also recognized that we had to create the right narratives in market. And I believe our ThinkSpace is a platform to create the right narratives. Now, there's some people who will disagree with that. The
people disagree with everything.
With
all
everything.
The time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for what I get out of it is I get immense understanding of where people are, what their concerns are, what their aspirations are, because those are the type of the questions that we bring out. A lot of times we've been in higher ed and we've just been used to doing what we've done before. And I think our ThinkSpaces give the opportunity for myself to grow and learn, oh, you know what, there is a challenge of that, or there is this issues that they're facing that I just didn't recognize. And I came from a big firm, and sometimes it isn't the same issue as a small school. And so it allows me now to have that dialogue with my clients or with my colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really excited about that. I really believe it's giving us just open dialogue to a market that's never had this type of dialogue.
100%.
Gabrielle, thank you for saying that in your agreement. Have to clear your throat, Matt. As we as we wrap up for you guys, we have 2 final questions we ask our guests, and you guys can decide who wants to do it or whatever. Number 1, what didn't we say about beyond academics that needs to be said? You have a consultancy. What does our audience need to know? How do they engage with you if they're interested? What's your website? Where are you speaking next? Anything you want to say, plug away. And then, what do you see as the future of higher education?
Let me take the first one, then I'll defer it to the second one for Gabrielle. I think Beyond is built on what we call brands, and these brands are different than a traditional consulting model. So ThinkSpace is a brand, and that is our thought leadership brand. We have something called IntelliCampus, which is all about the next generation campus using the next generation technologies, from blockchain to location intelligence to mobile app, deployment and things like that. And then also data within that campus. Having an intelligent campus is about using your data in a much different way. So that's a brand. We have a new brand called EdGigs, which is all about the talent exchange in the market. There's so many amazing skilled people in the market that as when I ran a consulting firm, I would always look for people and I would ask them to come and join my firm. But I couldn't get him away for 40 hours or get him away with EdGigs. It's a freelancer model where you will have the ability to have talent on one side and employers on the other side, whether it's a university, whether it's a consulting firm, whether it's our firm. And we're going to bring that together and just do incredible stuff. That's in brand. And then Whitefish is a blockchain solution that we're really bringing into market. People are going to see it. And then we have something called Hero, which is our brand and marketing agency. And it's all about messaging to the right people.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone thinks messaging in higher ed is external to the people you're trying to bring in. But when you're in this lane of transformation, you have to start to message the people within your campus.
Mm-hmm.
Those people that are doing innovative stuff have to be put on pedestals and be driven. And so we have these 5 brands, ThinkSpace, IntelliCampus, Whitefish, EdGigs, and Hero that are really going to change how higher ed does. Now, do we do consulting in all of them? Sure. But we're driven by these models that higher ed just has not seen in market. And that's what's really exciting for us.
What do you see as the future of higher education, Gabrielle? I feel like you got the harder of the 2 questions here. Matt did a good job of deferring.
I know, he does a great job at that. I'm going to keep this as simple as possible because when I think about what we do at Beyond, it's really focused on serving the student and serving the faculty that support the students. So to me, the future of higher ed is all about how do we become more student-centric and meet the needs of the people that we're serving. And I really can't put it any more simply than that. I think everything that we do is going to be centered around that. And that's why I'm super passionate about what we do at Beyond, because I really believe that, especially with our IntelliCampus, designing smart campuses and being able to empower faculty to not only become leaders on their campus, but give them the tools and give them the supports that they need to do their best work is really at the heart of what we do. So
I love it. One last question before I let you go, Matt. Why are you here at Ellucian, and what do you hope to take away from this conference?
I was invited to come here. I believe Ellucian is a great product line. They support all of these users here. I mean, the keynote today was a packed house. For us, we're here because we believe Ellucian is serving the community of higher ed. We believe they are looking at the right transformations. In a lot of cases, our clients are Banner and Colleague and all these other folks. And so we need to understand the direction that Ellucian is going. For us, we're a software agnostic consulting firm, but we also recognize that each of these vendors like Ellucian is really an important part of transforming each of these campuses to the future of the direction that they all need to go. So I'm really excited about it. I was really grateful for the invite and the hospitality. I'm learning a lot here. And then just being able to listen to others who are using their products and getting their take on it. I think that's as important for me as I take my notes back and say, hey, this is how, Beyond can help an Ellucian ecosystem. And so that's been really good for us.
It's amazing, guys. Well, we're honored to have you here as a part of the EdUp Experience podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, here they are. Matt and Gabrielle from Beyond Academics. Check it out. What's the website, Matt?
It's www.beyondacademics.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd.